Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this regular public meeting of the Cowlitz County Board of Commissioners. We have before us the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I would like to invite you to stand if you can and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. We have the printed agenda for today. I also have a copy of the county's policy on the election of a board chair and vice chair. And it provides that immediately following the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, the chairman will turn the meeting over to the clerk of the board. So at this point, I'd like to call on Commissioner Mortensen for his review of the minutes. Commissioner.
I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 I also vote aye. And now, Madam Chair, Clerk.
Thank you. Nominations will be made from the floor by the commissioners. Board members need to be recognized by the presiding officer to make a nomination. No second is required. Once all the nominations are heard, they will be voted on in the order received. The vote will be taken for the office of chair first, with the results being announced before we proceed to the vice chair election. Are there any questions from the board before I call for nominations? Nominations now in order for the office of chair of the Cowlitz County Board of Commissioners. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Mr. Dahl for chairman.
Are there any further nominations for the office of chair? Last and final time, are there any further nominations? Seeing or hearing none, nominations are now closed. The board will now vote in the order of the nominations are received. All those in favor of board member Dahl for chair signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain.
The vote is 2 yes and 1 abstained. The ayes have it. Board member Dahl is elected as chair. Congratulations, Chairman Dahl. We will now move on to the next nomination. I'm now turning the meeting over to Chairman Dahl to conduct the election for vice chair.
You know what? We'll take a 10-minute recess. I can collect myself here.
I pressed the wrong button. I need to be promoted again. Huh? Hey, sir.
Yeah, right.
Okay. You ready? Appreciate the indulgence. A little scripture was in order. We'll hold nominations for the office of vice chair. So at this point in time, I would ask for nominations for the office of vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully ask that you make the nomination. The chairman is someone you have to work with pretty closely.
No, I'm not. It's not my game. I'm not getting into it. You guys figure it out. We have no nominations, it just stays the same.
I would refer that to our attorneys to decide. What
I did not hear you properly.
I would refer to our attorneys to, because I don't have, it's not listed in our policy about no nomination.
Are they on?
Morning,
Good morning.
you have a question.
Yeah. Doug, if we have, we're sitting here with, waiting for a nomination for vice chair. If we have no nominations, where do we go? Does it just stay status
Sure.
quo or what do we do?
You have a chair, correct?
Yep.
That is all that is statutorily required. Your vice chair position is parliamentary matter, for appointment. At this juncture, because of that, you could, I guess, evoke continuity of office, which applies equally to a number of elected positions where the office remains unfilled by a elected candidate. The existing candidate, for lack of a better word, holds over. So you might approach it in that form of fashion.
Just ask for a vote of continuity.
Just acknowledge that there are no new nominations and that the existing chair would, as a consequence, continue to hold over in that position under your county or the board created policies under parliamentary process.
Okay. Then that's what I'll do. We've had no nominations, so we'll just hold over in continuity what we have presently going.
Who is the, sorry to interrupt, who is the vice chair then?
It was Arn at the time.
Okay, so it would remain Commissioner Mortensen until under the board itself, under its own policies, votes to place someone else in that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Okay, we've gone through minutes. Consent agenda, I'll be brief on some of these. We have a call for a public hearing that will be held April 18th at 9:45, and that's just basically for budget amendments. Every so often we look at how it's actually going. I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think because of opioid dollars and different things, we need an amendment from stuff coming in. There will be a public hearing for a new development out on Scytown Road in Castle Rock. In residential lot, one commercial lot proposal going in off Scytown Road. And that hearing will be held April 18th at 10 a.m. here. We have call for bids or Ostrander Road Culvert replacement project. That's been in the works for a while. Continuation of our agreement. This agreement started in 2018, I believe, from my notes. And we look at it every year. This is a continuation of agreement with Maul Foster Alongi for engineering services. And then squaring up the last bit on the temporary chiller rental installation over at the Hall of Justice. Last accounting figure there for $1,840.78. We have some letters. The redone letter out to Cynthia Brown on the Columbia and Cowlitz Railway. A letter of support for Pacific Fibre. Pacific Fibre is in negotiations with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to give the Corps of Engineers the opportunity to deposit dredge spoils in a vacated log pond that Pacific Fibre has. They're in negotiation with the Corps of Engineers. We've written a letter of support. We did that. We looked that over and approved that. A letter putting Brittanie Frewing, sorry if I butchered your name, on Cowlitz County Fair Board, 3-year term, expires January 2026. And then we get a labor summary, kind of a market summary of what's going on around this area. That's been included in board correspondence on the last 2 items. Plus then we have vouchers in an amount of $1,262,496.46. Does anybody have any questions on any of this? Any you want to pull? Yeah, Ron?
Green light, got it. Okay, thank you. Just a question, then coincidence here, your nomination for the Fair Board. What is the activity of the Fair Board in regard to this convention center and everything that's being talked about for change to our Cowlitz County Fairgrounds? Is the Fair Board engaged, involved, or do they have no say whatsoever?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know. I know the Expo Center works with the fair because we think the fair is a valuable asset over there, and I can't see it. They part ways, but that direct connection, unless one of the other commissioners has more insight, I don't know that. I can find that answer for you, but I don't know it directly.
That's why I bring it up, just for a point of involvement of community and the Fair Board and how all of that is working through, or something not being shoved toward
Yeah,
us without representation.
What I do know is I sit on that as the liaison to the facility district over there. So I'm over there once a month, sitting in that meeting. And I know they have very strong bonds with the fair, and they don't, they think it's a great event and that it belongs right where it's at. I can tell you that much.
Okay, well, we'll just count on that
Yeah,
cooperation.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
question on item number 5. I'm not sure that I recall ever seeing an accounting correction as a terminology. Is this a change order, or is this somebody entered the wrong amount in the ledger?
I think, yeah, it's not a change order. I know it's a accounting adjustment, but I'd have to have them come on and tell us where they missed that. They had some discussion on it the last time. There was talk about they missed some sales tax, and I don't know if this is directly related to that.
Yeah. All right, so it's just an accountant oversight.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Savannah Clement has her hand up. She can probably answer that.
Good morning. I wasn't on as a panelist. Sorry about that. That is correct. It was an accounting error in just how the contract amount was keyed into Agenda Quick. And then it was caught, and we're just putting it through as a resubmittal due to that error.
Thank you. Any other questions on consent agenda? Yeah.
Not to belabor the point, going back to your revised letter to the Office of Surface Transportation Board, which I assume is United States Department of Transportation. Going to a government acronym, Notice of Interim Trail Use, which was the point of the whole letter, the revised letter. I was curious, going back to the previous letter, was that correspondence written up by a governmental conference?
To be honest with you, I don't know who wrote that correspondence. I'm working on that. I'm going to find out because it looks like the letter actually was two parts. One, the first part was an extension. The second part was trying to add back the trail use that had been abandoned in, I think, 2017 or 2018, because they went into a historical agreement with the state of Washington. So the trail use was I have the documentation on it. And it sounds like they wanted to, whoever wrote the letter, added the second part that would, once again, instate trail use with the county accepting responsibility for something that happens to people if they're using the trail, which isn't acceptable. And so I will find out who generated that letter and why they generated it and why they wanted to institute that back into there when it wasn't voted on by this committee here.
Well, in the original letter, it had an attachment, a map, which wasn't in the agenda or the PDF agenda. It would have been helpful because it lists from Longview to Ostrander Junction. Whoever wrote the letter, were they aware that there is no crossing over Alpha Drive off West Side Highway? It had to be taken out because it was unstable. Was anybody aware when that letter was written that there's a gap there? Not to mention walking over the trestle, walking around Rocky Point, which is already overgrown. And not to mention that whether it was Cowlitz County, the rail company, or Patriot Rail, that they were using from 30th Avenue in Longview to Alpha Drive, they were using it to store oil tank cars. Was anybody aware, county commissioners or governmental conference, that this was happening? Not to mention, have you ever tried
Should I
to
be
walk?
aware if the people that own the tracks store something on them?
Well,
Should
if
they
they
contact us
store
and
it,
say, I want you to know I'm storing stuff here. Are you okay with that? I'm not sure they have that responsibility.
well, you were prepared to take over the whole rail line.
No, it wasn't. Wasn't voted on here by anybody. to
It
take
was
over the
in the
rail line.
previous letter.
No, there was stuff in there to explore trail possibilities and they kept asking for extensions.
Well, under this,
I have not found a document that tied the county to anything for that, other
well,
than a study.
did you read the previous letter?
I've read them back to 2018, what I can get my hands on, and I'm still working to get my hands on others.
And this NITU authorizes it as a trail now, right?
No, that's what they're trying to get back because that was taken out when they signed the agreement with the state that it's a historical area and they would do certain things. Why don't you get the agreement and look at that? The MOA between the state of Washington, the tribes and the other places. When that happened, the the trail use went away.
But yet you're asking for an extension in this current letter. So it didn't go away.
If I might add, it's our job to give the county the most flexibility if you can get flexibility without making a commitment, a binding commitment of any kind, I think that's a good thing.
Well, to make a long story short, is it usable according to this letter for a trail now? Can the general public walk the railroad tracks?
I walked the railroad tracks when I was a kid. Of course they can walk. How are you gonna keep them off of it?
But you're liable for anything that happens on those railroad tracks. Or should I say Cowlitz County is?
We don't own them. Of
That's
course,
a-
in this day and age, I can't say that somebody won't be liable for it because it's the way of the world. But the fact is, we don't have ownership over that. That's true fact.
But
we
through
own it.
this letter, you're asking for the use as a trail.
And that's the issue we had issues with, and we took it out, right?
Well, not according to this. You're still asking for an NITU. And it gives a 7-mile rail line between milepost 1.5 to milepost 8.5 at Ostrander Junction.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else? I see a hand from citizen. Citizen, if you want to unmute, if it's, I'm assuming you have something on consent agenda. Oop. I see the hand came down, so maybe that was an error. Okay. Anything else on the consent agenda? Any questions from commissioners? See none, I'd ask for entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
And a motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye.
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 I also vote aye. Consent agenda is approved. Office of motion items, Office of Financial Management. Washington State allocation agreement approval to govern the allocation of funds for certain setting opiate manufacturers. There's two different settlements on the opiate issue. One was a federal settlement. Cowlitz County has already been awarded funds in the amount of 3.7 million. I got that right? And those will be awarded on a yearly basis over a period of 17 years. So I think this year's allocation is about 140, somewhere in that area. Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director or Manager, I'm sorry. The first year of the distribution settlement, we received $275,000.
Okay.
And we actually received that last Friday.
Okay. And then the second part of the opioid settlement is with entities, Walgreens, CVS, people that sold the product. And that's what this agreement covers. Not, the first part is already taken care of. The second part, there's an agreement that Cowlitz County has to sign if they want to participate in it. And I believe that agreement has to be executed April,
Prior to April 18th.
prior to April 18th. And and that agreement tells you that, yeah, we want to participate in it. To participate by the end of June, we're in a group of 6 different counties.
Four other.
Four inter counties, and all counties have to decide on who's gonna be, I would call it the overseer of the funds to make sure that you spend it on the right things. So there's a lot of negotiation. It's not only the counties, but the big cities in those counties. In our county, that includes Longview and Kelso. So you have this big group of people that have to decide who oversees how that's done. There's a lot of discussion on that. We've had discussion on that here. Whether we want to use, there's an organization, Great Rivers, you could use that. There's Thurston County that says that they'll run it out of their Health and Human Resources. We've put the charge to our attorneys that Cowlitz County would like to have oversight over itself in our youth and under our purview. So there's a lot of negotiation on how you can do that, because that whole area has to agree on a set way of doing it. And if it means, and there's some disagreement, there's some, I don't want to call it disagreement, there's still some exploration that if it has to be one entity that oversees the whole thing, or if you can have maybe Cowlitz County hooks up with Wahkiakum and we have this smaller group that we decide how to overlook this. I don't know. There's still a lot of negotiation going on that. But this agreement, this is referring to in here, says that yes, Cowlitz County wants to participate. And then that's step one. Step two is we have to decide by the end of June how everybody gets into agreement on what we want to do. Am I
That's
pretty
correct.
clear on that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I did misspoke. There are 2 groups. The lawsuit lumps us with 6 other counties. You're right on that. Where we join in a behavioral health organization with 4 other counties, and they are exploring whether to offer their services for oversight. So that's what I thought you might have been referring to.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
So what you're looking at here is just signing the first part that gets us in saying we still have interest. We don't have interest, we don't have to do it. I don't know why we do that, but you know,
So
you have that option.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think there were 6 counties actually there. That includes Mason and Thurston,
Yeah.
which if you probably all know that we are not at all like Mason or Thurston in particular county. We're closer to Mason,
Yeah.
but and that sort of complicates things if there's a uniform entity that says how you're going to conduct the grants that come from the money. So we will get the money, then we will spend it in some way. And we've asked, and so far I think it's still in play, that the county can be autonomous in that they don't have to have permission from Thurston County, say, to execute that. Then there's another catch there. My understanding is that we have to have unanimous agreement over all the entities involved. That includes the city of Kelso and Longview, the county, and so on with all the other counties. I think if there's not a unanimous agreement on that, then I think the case that breaks the agreement, and I guess we get to hash it over again.
Yeah. So Commissioner Martin's exactly right. You're just trying to be real clear here with you. What we're asking for today is to say, yeah, we have an interest in doing this. But we still have other hurdles to come, and you'll hear those discussions up here as we move through that. And then when we make a decision, you'll absolutely know what that is. But this is just step one of moving forward.
So what is the amount relative?
You know, we've asked that, Ron, and we, the best guess we get is we think it could be similar to what you got from the federal distribution. But we don't have any rock solid numbers. Okay,
We haven't been provided an actual allocation schedule, because some of the participants are as long as 16 years and some are shorter terms.
yeah.
The total is 3.7 million for
For
this,
the first one.
for the first one, and 3.7 for the second one. I do have those.
Oh, you do
totals.
have those. Okay, I misspoke. Thank you.
I just don't have the allocation per year yet.
Yeah, okay.
And to complicate things, the allocations are treated, even though they came out of the same lawsuit, they're treated independently in the sense that the first 3.7 million may have fewer constraints on how it's used than the second 3.7.
Steve?
So once you get these funds, are there stipulations on how they have to be spent?
Yes. Yeah, you know, we never get funds without
Yeah.
stipulations.
Can
You know
you,
that,
can you
right?
give me a just
Go
a
ahead.
brief overview
There-
on what the restrictions are?
We don't, they're still, I would characterize that we're still kind of in discovery phase on what you can do with all those.
Okay,
Because they've been, at this point in time, we know there's going to be restriction, but it's been fairly vague. So
okay,
I wish I had a better answer for you, but
all
I
right,
can,
thank you.
the answer I can guarantee you is there will be restrictions. Any other comments on this? I don't see any hands. I'd ask for a motion to approve us signing this agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Washington State Allocation Agreement approval as has been discussed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we go into public comment, I would like to take a point, make a point of personal privilege.
Absolutely.
I feel the need to express a huge thank you to the warm and generous people of Cowlitz County. After what 1 week ago was personally one of the most abhorrent series of uncalled for personal attacks I've ever experienced, the public response has been one of overwhelming support and encouragement. I appreciated the radio media's description of this unpleasantness as a kerfluffle, which according to several dictionaries is a noisy disturbance, a disorderly outburst, a fuss, a brouhaha, or much talk about something not that important. And I especially agree with the print media who said it's time to move on. While I feel I have lost a week of sleepless nights and upset stomachs and a whole lot of melancholy, I remain convinced that in the time remaining in my third term, there is much left to do. Most important, I think, is to rebuild that process that encourages the members of this board to take the time and opportunities available to straighten out any misunderstandings that occur in the future. It is illegal for any two of us to talk privately with each other about county decision-making matters. If we had a chief of staff to handle routine administrative matters like this one was, misunderstandings can be easily worked out. Or if we had a 5-member commission, misunderstandings could be legally worked out in private between any two of us because 3 would be a quorum. But those moves have to come from somebody else. At the very least, we 3 need to make better use of the half dozen public meetings on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays of each week. After all, each one of those meetings is open to the public with a printed agenda available online that always includes miscellaneous, specifically to facilitate those kinds of conversations. Of course, we do have executive sessions that are closed to the public on very limited purposes, including contract negotiations, which was the subject of the letter extending the opportunity to negotiate. We didn't have those conversations during the meetings that were available to us. It may very well have come as a surprise to Mr. Mortensen. He'd been away for 2 weeks on a well-deserved vacation. That Monday that he came back, it didn't bring it up. And then the next day I was gone, and I was gone on county business. So there's some missed opportunities, and I hope we all recognize that we need to do better. To be honest, as intriguing as a Rails to Trails project may be, it certainly does pale in significance to the other pressing county issues, such as maintaining low landfill rates for county residents and businesses, protecting our safe and secure elections under transparent public observations, pushing for more behavioral health resources and effective treatment, fulfilling our state obligation to effectively address homeless, improving and maintaining our county roads and bridges, supporting economic development opportunities by attracting new investments while supporting expansion by existing employers, and of course, continuing to work with other county elected officials to build a more effective criminal justice system. And as important as all of these are, and that I will admit that kind of sounds like a little bit of a campaign pitch, the BOC must remain in the forefront of efforts to cope with the continuing after effects of the 1980s eruptions of Mount St. Helens. Nobody else in the country is as affected as a majority of the Cowlitz County residents are. And that brings me to why I wasn't at that Tuesday meeting, to answer Mr. Mortensen's initial questions about that routine matter on asking an extension to negotiate with Patriot Rail. I was representing the county at a 2-day workshop that included over 20 state, federal, and local agencies, including one Indian tribe and members of the public. We got good news from the Corps on a couple of fronts, which is a report that I'll be sharing with the board a little bit later on, as well as with the readers of the Kelso Longview Chamber of Commerce newsletter. In case it isn't obvious, I have no intention of resigning my position as your commissioner. Yes, it is time to move on to more important matters facing Cowlitz County. Thank you.
Thank you. We're open to public comments.
Congratulations, Chair Dahl. I follow up to your letter or note, Dennis, and that was going to be my comment, is that we have 3 elected county officials. You have a variety of opinions and looking at things differently, but you represent all of us of the county, and we need you to work together. And show that to the citizens of how, with your diversity, you 3 can work together and lead us in this county. We certainly have concerns about our federal government representing us. We have concerns about our state government representing us. You are the next level of government representing us, and we need you to work together and review the things with us. And again, the community constituent comments that we have here is an example for the other government entities of this city and county, et cetera. So an opportunity, for instance, is just the previous discussion, the $3.7 million and $3.7 million that you can show transparency, clarity, and representation of our county citizens in that effort. Thank you.
Congratulations, Commissioner Dahl, Chairman. Hey, I got a little funny thing here that comes to my mind every time you read this off. Thought I'd get it out while we've got a minute. is this, every time you award a bid or something, it's like it says, including Washington State sales tax. So you're actually taking tax money to pay taxes, right? I mean, it's a question to me. Why do you need us? You know what I mean? You got like a little closed loop right here. What's the point of that? It's more of a rhetorical question than anything else, but it always strikes me as funny.
Actually, you know, there are attempts or offers or suggestions made all the time that we could eliminate expenses on contracts if local governments were exempt from doing exactly what you said, taking tax dollars to pay taxes. And it seems a little bit redundant. So that's absolutely a legislative issue that could be settled. But in the meantime, they preserve their prerogative to keep those tax dollars coming.
The state never saw a penny they wouldn't take out of your pocket.
Twice.
Anybody else?
Good morning. My name is Robert Sudar, and today I'm speaking to you as a Columbia River commercial advisor for Washington Fish and Wildlife for the commercial and fishing industry on the Columbia. And there's a budget proviso in the Senate budget for this session that is still in the budget that would provide $500,000 to eligible fishermen to construct a pound net or a couple of pound nets or fish traps on the Columbia. And as an advisor, I'm going to get asked questions about how to go about that process. And so I'm letting the county know that they may get asked for what permitting is required in order to, I mean, there's obviously federal permitting, there's Corps of Engineers and other things, but the county will also get asked for any permits that are required in order to install those, whether they're along the main stem or if they're at the mouth of the Cowlitz or the Kalama or any of those locations. And so I just wanted to bring it up and let people know that that money is in the budget over 2 years at this time. And that there could be questions coming up from interested fishermen. And so I'd like some advice on who to send them to if those things come up. So that's basically what my testimony is about today. But you don't have to give me an answer today necessarily, unless you have one, but
I don't have one, but I would like to have your contact information. And
yeah, the county has it. I'm
Yeah.
involved in some other things, so
okay,
it should be there. Check building and planning, they'll have it, so.
okay.
All right, thank you very much.
I think it's the easiest answer, sort of universal answer is if you want the board to see something, you would email it to the clerk of the board and she makes sure that we address all of that, or at least we get to look at it.
Okay, well, certainly if the proviso, it doesn't have a number, it's on page 299 of the Senate supplemental budget but it is in there as an item. And if it passes, I will be certain to send it to the clerk and she can share it with you at that time. So
If you don't mind at this point, could you flesh that out just a little bit more? Are we talking about 500K in aggregate or 500K per any number of?
it's in aggregate over the 2 years of the budget cycle. And it doesn't say how many fishermen could use that money, but to install a trap would be anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 complete. And so conceivably one fisherman could use that much money, depending on what the location was, how large it had to be, how they designed it, what additional things they needed for it. So
I'm unfamiliar with the purpose of a trap in this case.
well, primarily it's another way to harvest salmon.
Okay.
And to sort through fish and in this case, it would be primarily to harvest hatchery fish and to pass wild fish through. Hatchery fish are typically clipped, have a missing adipose fin, and the wild fish don't. And that's not a 100%, but that's typically the solution. And the idea is to reduce excess spawners, hatchery spawners that could be spawning with wild fish on local rivers. They have guidelines for how much of a spawning percent they want for that. Fish and Wildlife does. And so it would be removing those fish that aren't caught in other fisheries. And that's one way that's been discussed. And there's been some research, if you drive towards Cathlamet, just before you kind of start climbing up the hill, if you look straight down the river, there is one existing trap that's been there for, well, it's historically a trap site, but it's been in service off and on the last 5 years as just a test site to see if it was an effective way to harvest. And it's had pretty mixed results, but there are some people who are still suggesting that this is a worthwhile effort. So
is this designed to be an alternative to gill netting?
yeah, that's the idea. So that, does that help? Does that at all?
Yeah, I'm always interested in what the holistic view of a project is. Particularly if we're spending taxpayer dollars, it's like, okay, what's in it for the taxpayer?
Yeah. Oh, I'm on board with that too, but certain legislators think this is a good idea. And historically, traps were common on the Columbia, but they were outlawed almost 100 years ago. So this is a potential reintroduction. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And you were very nice and modest. You've been one of our longest serving members of the Planning Commission, and thank you for your service.
That's okay. It's
That is a thankless.
it's a hard habit to break even after 30 years. So thank you.
My inquiry took place from an article in the print Daily News of March 21st, 2023, which led me to attend the Public Development Authority on March 28th. That was the Longview Development Authority. And quickly learning about development authorities, there are many in the Seattle region, specifically the two that developed, or the one that developed both sporting arenas for the professional football team and the professional baseball team, which I learned long ago. If you rented a hotel room within the city limits of Seattle, you got socked over $10 by this Public Development Authority to pay back the $958 million that they borrowed from the state of Washington. So I guess you could say all residents had a hand in financing those two sports arenas. But my specific comment goes to the Cowlitz County Event Center, and I'm looking at a master plan, which I presume was paid for by Cowlitz County, because it says prepared for Cowlitz County, gives your address, Kelso, Washington, by Burger ABM of Vancouver. And unbeknownst to me, it showed three alternatives. How at the time, even before these public development authorities were established, one by resolution in the city of Longview. And I'm at a loss to find out how one was formed by Cowlitz County. You do have a public development authority. And the only thing I know is that the bylaws were printed for Longviews after they passed their proclamation. And they're appointed by the City Council of Longview. Who appoints the county Public Development Authority commissioners for the county? The commissioners?
Oh, I would think so, but I don't know.
So the Public Development Authority that Cowlitz County formed is the entity that runs the 911 center. So it doesn't have anything to do with hotels or anything like that. Our legal counsel advised us against a public development authority to build the hotel. The event center several years ago said that their ability to fully utilize the event center is hampered by the lack of hotels convenient to that location. And the PFD, which is a board that we appointed after creating the Public Facilities District, came to us and asked, if we were willing to collaborate to address that problem, the lack of a hotel on site. And we looked at the options. The Public Facilities District by law cannot operate hotels. So we had to look at a different thing. City of Longview volunteered to create the PDF or the PDA. And we negotiated a 5-year period where they needed to cut a deal with a hotel. Or the property gets reverted back to the original borders. So the county's PDA is 911.
Then why are there photographs in the commercial building on the fairgrounds listing the commissioners of the PDA?
No, that's a different agency, the terminology. That's the public PFD.
PFD.
And that's
Public
the
Facilities
agency
District.
he represents, he's our liaison with. And those folks are appointed by us and they operate that facility. They oversee the facility, they finance it. They use the same financing mechanism that the other agencies used. It also includes, and you skip the one part, it also includes a portion of the state's sales tax that is made available for PFDs. And that agency then issued bonds, which are being paid off by the revenues that come in. And they have public meetings every month.
The sales tax isn't an additional tax. It's just a portion that gets to stay in Cowlitz County and doesn't have to run through the pockets of the state before it comes back. So it's when they did that, they didn't say, well, okay, the sales tax is going to go from 8% to 8.1, for example. They just said, no, of that 8%, you get to keep 0.1. So it wasn't an increase in expense. It was
We got to spend it rather.
we
than
got
the
to
state.
spend it rather than the state taking their cut before they send back and told us how to spend it.
So do you have any authority to raise or lower that sales tax?
I don't believe we do. It's a state statute.
Well, it's interesting in the bylaws of the Longview PDA
Mhm.
that they don't have the authority of taxation or eminent domain. Yet some of these plans show you wanting to put the hotel on the other side of Washington Street in a residential area.
No, that was certainly one of the ideas. The plan that we've talked about all along has been adjacent to the event center.
And you finance this all by sales tax.
The facility district, operates.
Well, the event center,
They make money off the event center too.
Yeah. the hotel has to stand on its own and they have to buy the
Yeah.
property and,
Well, how does that, isn't that a public gift when you put a private hotel on public land?
well, except like I said, they have to pay for it. So it's a sale, it'll be a sale.
But they already have an in because you're giving them that public land, and of course, they have to pay for it according to you. But yet
The private entity will have to pay for it.
well, isn't it giving that land a public gift, even though they pay for it?
How is it a gift if it's paid for? I don't understand that part.
Well, it's public land and you're putting a private entity on it.
They can purchase it. They're purchasing it.
City of Longview is selling that lot to the hotel.
Which brings up another point, you know. You've got two PDAs here. You've got the county one and you've got the city one. And the interesting part about that is both PDAs, you have two people, Mr. Gregory and Mr. Magnuson, sitting on both boards. Isn't that a conflict of interest?
Those two gentlemen sit on the Public Facilities District Board. That is not a PDA. That it doesn't exactly answer your question. Is it a conflict?
When they sit on a county and a city board, isn't that a conflict?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. But yet,
I mean, if there's a conflict, anytime any of us have a conflict, which means we make a personal gain from decisions that are made, then yeah, that's illegal and you have to recuse yourself from any kind of personal benefits.
then why are they on the county board at all?
They're not getting paid for the PDA. Yeah,
But they're working for you got two.
they're working for.
You got two entities here doing the same thing. You got a county, which I'm looking at, they call it a Public Facilities District Board.
Mhm.
They
Right.
don't even meet on county property. At least the county board doesn't. It meets at the Columbia Theater, which is kind of strange. And then they reference the Expo Center, which is the old county fairgrounds. And then you find them on the Longview Public Development Authority, Mr. Magnuson and Mr. Gregory, whose direct interest is the hotel they want to put on public property. And yet, according to the map outlined in county property, which is kind of this map that's in the master plan, you've got I guess the county doesn't own the fairgrounds anymore because it's in, well, it's not, they do. Because the only city of Longview property, which is overseen by this PDA, is on the dike. So the whole thing, you've got the Longview PDA basically eliminating the fairgrounds as it's established now. And that is what I heard at the March 28th meeting. And to use the same analogy of Mr. Mortensen about building a penthouse, I guess at the top of this hotel, they're going to put a bar, which is on public property.
I'm struggling with what you want from us here. I mean, you want me to tell
Well-
the developer, you can't have a bar at the top of your hotel? Don't you dare put a bar at the top of your hotel. What's wrong with you? You can't do that. This is Cowlitz County. We don't allow that. Where do you want me to go with
When
this?
you're gifting public
I'm
property
not
to a
giving
private,
Public property, they're
Oh,
paying
yeah.
for it. They're paying money for it.
Which-
Dollars, greenbacks.
which is a different PDA. The Longview PDA and the county, according to the map, which you still own the fairgrounds.
Mhm.
So what did you get? What did the county get for this exchange?
There was a fair amount of effort to get like for like exchange of property. I don't remember the details, but there was a fair number. We'll get this and add it to this and
Yeah.
so forth. And so it's as the gentlemen say, I do want to say we want to be careful. Conflict of interest isn't always just I make $5 on the transaction. It may be that I am so steeped in a particular the discipline or background that I cannot see outside. I think that's a valid statement of conflict of interest, maybe more than just the dollar amount at the moment. I'm not sure how that applies here, but I'd like us to be very clear on what the meaning of some of the definitions are. I don't think you're suggesting that any of those two people are collecting extra cash. I think you're suggesting that their perspectives are fairly narrow and they're not looking at the big picture. Am I correct?
Oh, well, I'd have to differ with you that when they're both on the separate boards, supposedly with divergent interests, they're supposed to be concentrating on the 911 center.
They don't have anything to do with the 911 center. You're
Well, it's
mixing
a
up the
separate
terms.
entity. I know the
Yeah.
taxpayers got jammed for that. I know that. Oh, and that's interesting enough. It's adjacent to that rail line too, with the natural gas line in a floodplain.
If I may continue, I've agonized over the fact that some of us are on boards of entities which have an operational interest that involves maybe the grants or the contracts that we issue. Our presence on the CAP board is something along those lines. My presence on the Washington County's Insurance Fund Board is one of those things where we are the customers for the board for the Washington County's Insurance Fund, and yet I'm on the board here and have to decide that something for the taxpayer based on two hats. So there are some built-in things that we should keep a pretty close eye on.
We debated the conflict with a quasi-public entity being built on public property against private enterprise. I reminded you there were 200 hotel rooms within walking distance of the old fairgrounds, now you call the event center. Now this will be a direct conflict or a direct competition. And of course, the bar is a little added addition, which I was surprised to hear. But I know you rent out the so-called old commercial building and you have a operator that provides food service, do you not?
Yes.
Does the county get any revenue from that?
Let me try and derail you just a little bit. For one thing,
Derail?
yes, the public should understand that whoever wins this hotel contract, it will have been handled just like we handle any other contract. It's an RFQ or an RFP, and there are respondents, and we have to choose the ones that we think are the best. So it's not like whoever your favorite hotelier didn't have an opportunity to bid and say, we'll buy the land and do this and that. And that kind of applies to almost every place else where you're heading down the tracks.
And being the entity buying public property is not a disadvantage to private hotels? That's not a disadvantage.
Well, I took a look at a little bit of your data, and because I know way back when, and I don't recall the details, I asked that very same question because I suspect we agree the government should not compete with private enterprise. It's done all the time, but I don't want to be the one that has my thumbprint on that and said he went ahead and did compete. In a philosophical standpoint, anytime you build another hotel in some kind, hotel room or hotel, you are going to compete. But the data you're supplying seems to me to be inaccurate. I don't know that within 2 block or 3 block, you said that there are these hotels. I may not understand what 2 or 3 blocks are. The other thing is going back to it.
It's a very short distance.
Yeah, I stand by what I said. I don't think there are 200 hotel rooms within normal people's walking distance.
I
If
I
the
could name the
hotel, if the
hotels right
availability
now.
of hotel rooms were not a problem, we would be having multi-day conferences at the event center all the time. That's not happening because they're not really that desirable for people coming in from out of town.
They're not able to walk 1 block.
They're not able to be attracted to the kinds of hotels that, you know,
So we're making a special dispensation.
all I'm saying is the
there.
data is pretty clear. They're not coming for multi-day conferences because of the lack of acceptable hotel.
What's the name of the hotel that's a block from the event center?
Town Chalet and Best Western at the foot of the Peter Crawford Bridge. That's only 2 blocks. Town Chalet is within sight of the old fairgrounds. A personage named Mrs. Wertheimer built it years ago, along with Ferguson's Restaurant.
That's more than a block away. That's
No,
quite a
it's
few
not.
blocks away. But
Not when you can.
all I'm
see
saying,
the
they're not
event
able to
center.
attract the multi-day conferences. And that was the whole thing, is to get more people, more heads and beds to fully utilize the event center. What's wrong with that?
And it's less than a block from the county jail, the state work release center, the so-called youth center, call it the detention center, and the courthouse. Prime location, right? When you got the restricted street, which is going to take up most of the parking, and you'll have a bar on the top roads.
I think you're map challenged.
You're the
You're
one
cracking me
that
up.
paid for this plan. The county did in April 10th, and it's all right here, and it's pretty aggressive.
The date is, you said 2013?
2010, before all these public development authorities were established.
And if, again, if I remember correctly, I was on the commission then. The Public Facilities District paid for the study, but it's the Cowlitz County Public Facility District, so.
According to this, and
Yeah,
I'm reading
it's Cowlitz
verbatim,
County, yeah,
prepared for Cowlitz County,
sure.
Berger Abam of Vancouver, Washington.
And so the board paid for that study, turned it over to the commission, the county commission.
And
No.
they're in the process, they're gonna be
This was
updating and doing.
before the boards were established in 2013, before the resolution, before the Longview City Council,
The
3 years before.
The Public Facilities District was started in
2013.
No, it wasn't. It was earlier than that.
Which one?
The Public Facilities District.
Well, you got one for the county, you got
That's-
one for the city.
No, those are
According
public
to the one
development
from the city.
authorities. You've got two different entities you're talking about.
Yeah, I know.
The county's Public Development Authority, the PDA, takes care of 911. Don't get that confused. Doesn't have anything to do with the event center.
But yeah,
The Cowlitz County Public Facilities District Board is what operates and finances improvements to the event center, the old commercial building, exactly as you described it.
give me the
And they
name of
also
that
took on a remodel-
organization
they-
again.
They also took on a remodel of the Columbia Theater, which you mentioned, because that is within their law to help provide public facilities.
The one established by Cowlitz County, huh?
Which
Is there anybody else that wants, I mean, I don't want to shove you aside, but I need to know if there's other people and we'll get back to you because this is going nowhere real fast. And I want to make sure everybody has a chance to talk. You have,
I feel like you didn't ask a question. is the county gonna sell the property just to the east side of the event center to a public hotel? Is that the intent? That's what this shows. And my further question to that is why the hell would you disrupt the whole fairgrounds by doing so? When they, if you want to sell property to them, you got the whole across the street, 2 or 3 acres over there that could be, they could build a hotel over there and it would not disrupt the fair.
That's Longview property.
That's what,
It's Longview property.
doesn't say so on the map. It says it's county property.
Well, I can tell you it's Longview property. We have the documents that show with the land swaps. Where the hotel's going,
Then this map is way outdated.
it could be. Where that hotel, where they're talking that hotel going is Longview property. And the fair,
And the map shows that it's county property.
yeah, and the fair says they have plenty of room because some of that area was used where the fair is. And they say, they're telling us that they have plenty of room on there that the fair won't be disturbed.
I guess my concern, Rick, is the fact, or on the Board of Commissioners, is the fact that we've only got a few places left in the county that are, you might say, public. You know, the fairgrounds being one, down, or the Riverside Park being another, et cetera. And you keep taking away. In fact, with one of, I'll just throw that in there about Riverside Park. I heard that the Corps of Engineers was talking to the county about filling it in with sand, dredging the Cowlitz River. It's, you know, how many, you know, we don't have any county parks left anymore, and the fairground is one of the last pieces of property where massive events of people can get together and have fun. And I'm kind of concerned about it because our Masonic booths is in the middle kiosk, right to the east of, you know, right where the bandstand, across the street from the bandstand, there in the fairground. And that would wipe out all 3 of those kiosks that Sid Roberts and his construction crew built 30 years ago for the Maple Chapter Eastern Star. And that's my concern, because we have an interest in that. And that's exactly where the hotel would go. Now, see where I'm coming from? That's all I got, Brady. I just wanted to point that out.
And to back that up, at the March 28th meeting, they did talk about wiping everything along Washington Way and the kiosks and the field for the carnival, so to speak. That's going to be the parking lot. And that was discussed less than a week ago. So that's where it's going. It's not going round and round. It's already been decided. They're waiting for bids, and that'll be in May 26th.
Plus they still have room for the fair. The fair is not going away.
I don't know where they're gonna put it. They've allowed for the equine or the horse people, because they have a special plan in the master plan for them. So we've got a special interest group whose interests have been taken care of. But everything else goes away according to this master plan. And this hotel will take up most of the east end of the fairgrounds. And the extension on that, like I said, was May 26th. So don't tell me this round and round. That's just a cop out. And when I hear a public official say that, yeah,
Round and round.
where's this going? Your plan, you use public money to buy it, and now it's going down the road.
We should just back up 50 years and call it good.
Yeah,
Not do anything.
Go
Just
ahead.
sit there back in 50 years,
Well-
stitch our clothes.
go ahead, make fun of it.
Well, you just,
Let me just place the private challenge is that it seems to me that Old Charlie's Restaurant is still private property owned there. That would be the opportunity for a motel on riverfront, which we don't have hardly any access to riverfront in our community, right next to the property that the Diking District just purchased in this plan, and says that private enterprise has full authority to move ahead. So I would use the private-public challenge and say, why can't private enterprise move ahead on an example like that?
Why haven't they?
because your Longview Public Development Authority is taking it over according to these plans. And with a sky bridge over First
The
Avenue.
Riverside?
Yes, it's in these plans that you paid for back
Yeah.
in 2010.
Well, we paid for a plan, but I don't recall any purchase of that land. That's not part of any plan that we have. It might be in a plan like that, but there's been no purchase.
Charlie's Restaurant.
Doesn't
is
need
for
a
sale,
purchase. It
right?
belongs
And I
to the
think it's-
city of Longview now.
It's for sale and, well, it could be. I don't know. I'm not on the city council there.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
So
So there's some reason nobody wants to put a hotel there.
something,
well,
it's either
We welcome it.
overpriced
I don't
or
think
somebody's
anybody's
not
opposed
saying.
to having a hotel there.
it sounds like today we also made a mistake of changing chairmen. So we didn't get anything different.
You got something different, I'll tell you that. Anybody else?
Thank you, commissioners. I am here today because I kind of want to ask for a policy change, so it doesn't happen to Rick. Like, can we, I haven't seen your policy on how letters are sent out, but if we could do a policy change where all three of you guys have to give a thumbs up or something like that, or maybe like Dennis said, a county manager. I don't know, but something probably should change so this doesn't ever happen again. Thank you.
I guess I would just like to say that over the last couple of weeks, as disrupting and as embarrassing as the situation was for everybody to have to deal with, when those types of situations come up in private business, it's a lot different than it is in a public situation where you have a public board and people who are elected by the citizens. In private business, you take the employee aside and you address it individually and gets his comeuppance from somebody that helps him see the way. In a public entity, the citizens sitting out here, the people who elected you, don't have the opportunity to take somebody aside and criticize them or to voice their opinion one-on-one in an office and to fix the problem. So it ends up happening in a public setting. Whether the decision is made by one person or by a board, whether it's intentional or whether it's accidental, however you got there, the public gets to have the opportunity to come and voice their opinion. Sometimes those opinions are angry and sometimes they can even be out of line. If it gets into name calling and those kinds of things, that shouldn't happen. But the criticism is going to happen in public. And whether we like it or not, we're going to have to sit through it when it happens. So hopefully there's a solution to this somewhere to where it doesn't happen again. And thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys working your way through this. Have a good day.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of my mom, whose health wouldn't let her be here. I'll just give a quick overview. She got a notice from the county that she has these rental houses on 48th Avenue. And she's been contacted by the county that they will be changing these houses into the same address, but unit A, B, C, D, E, F. And so that's just kind of the basic overview. But so my grandpa bought this property back in the mid-40s after World War II. Around 1955, he purchased a section of the Huntington Villa houses, which were a strip of house is built for loggers, for the mills and such. And he actually went out and he chopped them apart, built new walls on them. He hauled them out to 48th, and over the course of a few years, he turned them into little rental houses. So for over 70 years, they've been individual addresses, individual sewer, water, driveways, very large yards. You guys have the picture, they're very separate. And she got this notice that they will be turned into basically units for the purpose of updating to county code for emergency services to make it more streamlined, which is pretty counterintuitive when you look at the map. Turning a large section of a block of houses from separate house addresses, which are in order to units, is not going to assist, in my opinion, EMS. So I'm not here to ask you guys to stop it or anything. I'm just kind of here to use this as a kind of a learning point to kind of shed a light on this. They've been up for over 70 years. They're still great little houses. She tries to rent them affordably. But since it's all in one parcel, it's not a subdivision, it would require changing these individual houses to units, which would, probably lower the value in terms of what she can rent them for. She's divided other properties before, and she was guessing it would cost probably over $100,000 to separate these into parcels, which she would just have to pass on to her tenants. So I just kind of wanted to do this as a display to show that, like my grandpa, he came here and he didn't really have anything. And because of the way it used to be so relaxed with the restrictions, he was able to basically create a business on his own property. And all in all, he bought eight units from the Huntington Villa houses. So I just kind of wanted to show that, if we could find some way to, something like this isn't even possible anymore. This is completely impossible for someone to have a single parcel and create 8 rentals on it. So, yeah, she was really upset about it. The tenants are really upset about it. And I just wanted to shine a light on that. But again, not looking for anything from you guys, just.
But I appreciate you bringing that forward. It's been there 70 years and have we had any history of anybody not being able to find them because they're
No, one of her
real addresses?
a couple of our tenants have had 911 calls over the past 3 or 4 years. A lot of our tenants are really, really long-term. So some of their, health issues and EMS, has always been right there. We have the Cowlitz 2 fire station just down there past Baker's Corner. And the service is always really prompt. I actually lived in the house next door to my parents when my dad died. And I mean, the ambulance was there within, less than 10 minutes, and they knew exactly where it was. So, and like the one house my brother currently rents with his family, and they've lived there for over 10 years, and they've never had an issue.
So I am a little bit confused with the statement this county sent. It's in the bottom of the second paragraph. An inconsistent addressing poses a risk to health, safety, and welfare. And I look at the current addresses and they're in consecutive order. I know there are places in the county where the addresses, because of development, the numbers actually up and skip around, and those need to be changed for health.
I agree.
Quite get it. I think it's really that it's one parcel.
Yeah, I
It's
think
a separate parcel, but that's not that's not a health and safety risk.
I will
We
certainly
can
ask
probably
about it.
follow up on it with the
Yeah.
department.
Oh, well, I'd appreciate that. Like I said, I wasn't looking for anything, just to kind of shine a light, because that was actually my first impression reading the letter. And then when it went to the section that as there is no subdivision permit currently on file with the county to formally subdivide the properties and houses, this letter is your 30-day notice. I think that was the real issue, is that there's just no subdivision permit. And then they kind of found the code, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. They kind of found the code to kind of remedy that. And my mom did call because she was, like I said, she was really upset. But they pretty much told her that they're going ahead with it and there's nothing she can do.
I'm gonna make an assumption you're on city sewer and water? Or no sewer?
I believe so. The opposite, across the street from her, is now City of Longview. And then she's kind of, her property and, her side of the street is kind of in that county island where Longview actually, kind of surrounds it and goes out,
Mhm.
like, the park, there by Baker's Corner, the park and school. So she's kind of in a county island. But yeah, I believe she's on Longview Water and Sewer.
Okay, yeah, because that would be the other possibility is if the septic tanks are failing and need to be repaired, and that might be a concern, health concern, but not any, I don't see the inconsistent addressing, so.
Yeah.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Well, I'd appreciate that.
I will ask the question. It seems like we're trying to force something on you, and it's crazy.
I just thought it was kind of a neat story. I've always been proud of my grandpa, Bill Rigdon. He was just such a entrepreneurial man and did this and created a whole street of houses just from the, sweat of his back. And, ended up buying a big farm in Eastern Washington and did the same thing over there. And a lot of that stuff, regulations just killed that ability, and regulations just killed those people where they just can't exist anymore.
And that's the sad thing. You couldn't do this today.
No, these houses.
And
would have
these
been-
have been here for 70 years,
So, yeah,
providing housing without problems.
Yeah.
We couldn't do that today.
yeah.
It's nonsense. But I'll
Yeah,
look into it.
I often try to take a look at things from what it might look like for someone in the county just driving by. And it's been certainly said clearly, there's no ambiguity. You've got sequential house numbers, everything is fine. So then you have to look and say, well, if I'm driving down that street, I should be able to infer from the addressing that in fact they're independent lots of some kind, but nobody thinks about that. I don't go by and think, oh, I wonder what the boundary line of that property is. And so this, I've talked before about if bureaucracy works for you, good. If you work for it, you got a problem. And I think this is what you're showing here, is that we have a problem.
That's what I wanted to illustrate. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Thanks for bringing it. to our
Thank you.
attention.
Any others? I don't see any hands unless I miss anything. Okay, we'll be back at 1:30 to go over some workshop business. Other than that, we're adjourned. Thanks for your time.
Question?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the Q&A. It's been too busy and active. Was there anything there that we should address? I don't see.
Oh, I
anything
think they
that-
were both comments to when I
Oh, there was
think
a lot of-
Ron was talking, somebody was not talking into the microphone and they couldn't
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah. And on the chat, well, there's just was everything on the chat. Let me ask the clerk of the board, we record the Q&A and the chat? Okay, so that's all going to be reviewable. Okay. Oh, I should say, thank you, Mr. Dahl, for assuming the position of chairman.
Anything else? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks.